I'm kind of curious what you see as important to leadership today that wasn't on our radar 10 years ago. And equally, what might be important a decade from now that we're really not thinking seriously about?
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great question. So one of the things is that, as leadership has been changing over time, it's like different times require different leadership and different leaders. So, we think of a number of decades ago when we are in the industrialization, it's productivity. We need to just go, 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 go. And we're building these, corporate structures and all that. The kind of leadership that people were looking at, were looking for were more of an authoritarian, right? It's like hierarchical leader would come in, and that actually, if we want to visualize that kind of looked like a white male, very straight white male. There was alpha male, right? Comes probably from a physical standpoint a tall white straight male, and that's how people saw leadership. And then it was more like, hey, this is what we have to do. And people, from a discipline, it's kind of like the honor of work, and I put my head down. I have this responsibility to do the work, and I will take the orders and really not question. And if we think of parenting, kind of like when I was a child, right? It's like what your parents told you, you just gotta do it. And if you ask for a question and your parents gave you information, that was what it was, because the Google, didn't exist at the time, right? And if you look at kids today, it's a totally different dynamic, right? So what I'm seeing in leadership now is that because the new times, think of coronavirus, right, has brought this idea of, hey, life is short. We need to be happy. There's a lot of more conversations about mental health, right? How do we feel? We've
Yeah.
elevated the importance of happiness, right? So people want to be happy, people want to enjoy their lives. And because of that, then that has had an impact on the kind of leaders that we're looking for. So some of the changes that are happening, for example, is that that unquestionable hierarchical leadership of this is what you have to do and just go and do it, that's no longer having as much traction. Now people need to have purpose. It's like, okay, boss, I can do it, but help me understand why
Why?
we
Yeah.
need to do that, right? It's like, what is the purpose? And so that I can wake up on Monday morning and be excited and go to work and stuff, I have to have something that inspires me, right? So then that's a really important difference is, now I need to follow leaders that I relate with, that I can understand, kind of what are their motivation, what are their agendas, how do they, what is the impact that they have, for life and all that. Then the second part that is important is that in the past, people related through admiration on success. So, for example, people admire the, wow, the heroes, the, oh my God, like people that were amazing, that were perfect. So the stories that were told by leaders were stories of success, success stories, I am amazing, look at this and stuff. But now, as people want to, people actually relate through admiration, but not necessarily for success, but also admiration through vulnerability. It's like, I can
Mm,
admire you because I know that you are human, you are imperfect, that you,
you're
through your
authentic.
life,
Yeah.
you have had to go through, how do you say, so there have been difficult times in your life, adversity, and you have had the integrity and the strength to navigate through adversity, and you're still here, right? So it's interesting because now I've been doing more of this, is that in training leaders to be more human, is to tell them, okay, because the people to follow you and to admire you, people need to know that you're human and you're imperfect. So let's learn to tell stories in the storytelling thing. Let's learn to tell stories also of vulnerability, of things that didn't go how you wanted, right? So then when people start to tell stories, when leaders start to tell stories, well, remember I applied to this school, I'm making this up, but I applied to this school in Ohio and I wasn't admitted. So I was crushed and I was, really sad and stuff because I really want to go to that school. And it's like, okay, great. You're doing great. That's wonderful. Keep going. But then, I took the time and I prepare and then I apply and then I got admitted to six, Ivy League schools. And then it's like, okay, no, 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 hold on, stop. This is not what we're looking for here, because what you're telling is a success story where you're just kind of mentioning a little bump in the road, but it ends up in a success. But people don't want to connect through success. I mean, success obviously has to be part of it. But what people want to learn is what else is in you, is like, what, I want to connect with you to know that you, like myself, so I have felt defeated, I have made mistakes, I have been, sorry about things that I've done in the past. and then to be able to connect with you, I want to know that in your life you have had those moments too. So it is important now for leaders to learn to think about, what times in their life when things didn't go well, and to learn to tell them, and to have the trust and the confidence to say, hey, yeah, I messed up, and that's it. That there was a story that didn't have a solution. I messed up, and that's it. And then there was a different day. That's a new skill that needs to be learned. The other thing that is interesting is that now what I'm hearing, from focus groups and research and all that, is that as the new generations are coming in and becoming managers, you have Gen X's and Gen Z's that are becoming managers of people. They're managing different. They're managing the
Yeah.
people differently, right? And then that's creating a problem for the kind of like the previous leaders that were managing in certain way. And things that I see, for example, I think that senior managers were struggling with the fact of kind of with work-life balance. You have the employees that came in, and in the middle of the day, they want to take a break, and they want to like rest and stuff. And that was seen in the old mentalities, like, you're lazy. How come you want to rest in the middle of the day, or you want to leave at 5? That's so irresponsible. You really don't appreciate your job and all that. But the new the Gen Z's and Gen Xers, when they become managers of people, they look at that differently. So they look at a rest like, hey, you're recharging. So it's like, great. It means, you love your job because you want to take a break in the middle of the day to kind of, rest and recharge and stuff. Oh, you want to go on vacation, you want to take a whole week, and you don't want to take your computer with you. That's fantastic, because it means that, you really love your job, because you want to go take the time, enjoy, and then you want to come back with all of your energy and everything, because you really want to love your job, right? And so there are all of these things that are, kind of looking at differently. So as a leader, 10 years into the future, as more and more of the, millennials and Gen Zs are becoming managers, will need to learn to understand the way they think. So for more senior leaders, we need to look at the way that they are leading people, because that's going to be the preferred way for many people, not for all, but for many people, they're going to prefer this. And there are companies now that are not checking on vacation time. It's like, yeah, as long as, you have to use criteria, obviously. So like, you're never going to show up, for the entire, for 6 months. But they're really not checking to see what days you're in or what days you're out. They're just, hey, here is this project, you do it, we need it by this time. You see where you do it, how you do it, or whatever. That's your problem. But we just need to have these by, July 1st. And it's just a whole new skill that it requires, because it requires now leaders to trust, right? And trust in
Yes.
others is a skill that some people have to develop.
It's interesting. You and I, both as marketing people, at points in our career, we learn to think as the consumer does. And I think you're making a really strong case here about leaders need to think about the people who they're leading,
Mhm.
and the cohorts change. And with that, with that comes a need for a different style of leadership.